Hello. I just want to check if there's a problem with my mic. Can you hear me clearly? Is the noise problem with the mic?
No, Shreyas, we can hear you very clearly.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Sherry. I think there was a problem with the slide which I was sharing. I could hear it very crystal clear and it's fine, but I guess there's some problem over the other side. Okay. I guess we should start now. Um,
Uh, Shreyas, if before we can start, if I could request, we are already staying in a isolated, quarantine world, and it'd be
yeah.
nice if we could see the students over here
Oh
rather
yes,
than.
yeah. Actually, yeah, we tell them, students, if you are interested, you can switch on your cameras. But the okay, Sherry, the problem is what most of the students they don't have very good internet, high speed internet.
Sure.
So that's why, yeah, so that's why they prefer not to share the camera. But if anyone wants to switch on the camera and you can do it, that will be fine. That will be great, actually. So we can have a very good interactive session. So yes, participants, it is going to be an interactive session. So there will be a lot of discussion that is going to happen, and I have listed down a lot of questions for the panelists, and then I'll be taking questions from you. So I'll explain the whole detail now. Should we start?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely, we
Yes.
should.
Yes. So good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to all the participants of the webinar on the Extra Mile. There's a discussion with HRs. The speakers for today's session are Miss Sherry Bengra and Mr. Abhijit Murugan. So I'll introduce them first. So our first panelist is Sherry Bengra. Sherry is electronics and telecommunication graduate from Goa Engineering College and a management graduate from XLRI Jamshedpur. She joined the RPG group in 2015 and has worked on diverse projects for C8 tires and became the campus lead for RPG group. So she has been also been awarded the RPG HR Excellence Award, and she is now senior manager of talent management and LNOD. So our second panelist for the event is Mr. Abhijit Murugan. Abhijit Murugan is a part of University Relations team of L&T Technology Services. He joined LTTS as a fresher and has been with the University Relations team since then. He has been running campus recruitment for LNTTS at premium T schools and B schools along with the Tier 2 institutes. He's an ex-club cricketer and also an avid biker who has recently committed a ride from Bangalore to Rajasthan. We welcome you both for the event.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shreyas, for that
Thank you,
introduction.
Shreyas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Wonderful
much.
to
Yes.
be here.
Yeah. So I'll just brief you all how we are going to go, brief the participants also how we are going to go about this. So in the first part of the session, we'll have a 5-minute brief overview of the company, your company recruitment process by both of you. And then in the second part, what we'll do is we'll discuss your perspective on typical questions that are asked by HRs in the interviews. And in the third part, we'll open the whole session for all the students and they can ask the questions. So students, you're requested to post your questions in the chat box, which I will be taking them for the HRs. So I think we can start. Start with you, Sherry.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yes. Good to be here with all of you, and I hope all of you are safe. You all are doing fine. You know, it's a very difficult time. This COVID's the second wave, so I wish you all to be safe and to take care of yourself in every possible way, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. With that, I think why I wanted to start this off is yet as a company and RPG as a group, we really focus on the wellness, of our employees. And in general, our motto itself has a smiley face. So our values has something that we call hello happiness. It has a smiley face. Is very important. The values of our company, which is pace. So for CET, it is play to win, agility, customer centricity, empowerment, and caring. And why am I telling all of you this is when we come on campuses, I think one of the main things that we look for is how well do each of you all embody these values. And when we start, I think while the initial, all of you all as engineers would go through an aptitude test, and most companies will have this, first round, which is aptitude tests. It's to, judge your intelligence, your ability to be analytical, your ability to take decisions, right? That's and honestly, you all are all from good camp schools. You're studying in very good colleges. 99% all of y'all will fly through it, right? So I'm sure y'all will do exceedingly well in this first stage. Now then comes the stage 2 and stage 3, right? And this is where we kind of start, I would say. So while your aptitude test is a selection process, right? So it will filter and select you. The later stages will become an elimination process where we start eliminating people, right? So that's how we sort of differentiate stages, right? So a selection versus an elimination. What happens in an elimination usually is various companies will use various tools. You know, even in CET, it's nothing that is standard, but largely they will use tools such as a group discussion, right? Or a group activity or a project where we want to look at you all as in a holistic environment. And as I'm saying that in an organization, you work within teams, right? You're not a solo player. You're not a one-man army, right? You work within teams. How do you build ideas? How do you, bring up topics, add to people's ideas? So usually they come debate, group discussion, it becomes a full fish market. And that's not what companies are actually looking for. What we are looking for is how do you work in a group to, really take an idea and build on it, right? Bring in critical thinking, talk for and against it from every perspective. And this really helps various companies to sort of really, people to stand out. So while you go with the group, you're actually standing out from the group, as contradictory as it may be. And that's what group discussion helps us. So you'll have 10 people and, one person will come out and say, okay, how did that guy, or that girl get selected and I didn't get through, and we'll come to those later. But usually that's how these activities are designed. So there'll always be different activities, but of the same kind. Sometimes it's called, what you call it, I'm forgetting some of the names, but there are various versions of it. It could be a debate, it could be a group discussion, a group activity, etc. that companies will come. So, this is how we sort of, and largely it's like a 1:5 or 1:10 ratio whenever there's a mass recruitment. And I think Abhijit would talk more about it, in his sector. But this is what happens. And then finally, which comes to is your interview stage, and all of you all call it the HR stage, right? So when you look at an interview, it's all of you all, again, it's a level playing field. Nobody has questioned your intelligence, your technical ability is not at all over here in question, right? We all know you guys are extremely smart. What we are here looking for, and especially when it comes to fresher recruitment, right? Fresher recruitment. I'll come back to the whole point of your, connecting with the values of the company. But there are certain, basic things as a fresher that every company expects, I think, irrespective of the values of the company. And my top 3, which I have, is, I think the first thing is your ability to learn, right? Just to be very honest, in one of my Siemens interviews, I'll tell you what happened just after engineering. The comment that was made, look guys, your engineering syllabus, and this was what, 2010, 11, just after this, is your engineering syllabus is 20 years old and it hasn't changed in the last 20 years, right? There's a huge gap in what is the industry expectation and what you guys are learning. It's not your fault, honestly, right? That's how the Indian education system, and I don't want to go in it and how, it's not meeting the industry realities. But companies will take it upon themselves to train you, right? They will train you, they'll take you through various stints, etc. But what we see is how is your ability to absorb and learn, right? So how good you are as a learner is one of the main key things that any company looks at, whether it's your HR interview or your business interview, or the technical interview. They are looking at your ability to learn. I think the second ability that we're looking at, or what we look for, is grit. Now, what do I mean by grit, right? When you enter an organization, and this is sometimes your first job, most of the time you will be put in one of the toughest jobs, toughest locations, right? You may be sent to some place very outside of your comfort zone. They might not speak your same language. The food may not be according to your taste. These are just some of the things that you will have to face when you go out there. And it's your ability to sort of, survive and fight, even irrespective of these challenges that you have. So work is one thing, but the entire environment that you will live and the ecosystem, how can you survive and really thrive in this organization, and become stronger? So I think grit and ability to take challenges, I think this is another thing that we really look for in each of you individuals. And the third that I would say, and people have different words for it, passion, etc., we call it fire in the belly. What do you mean by fire in the belly? Your ambition, right, is how do we see you take ownership of various things, and we'll come to it, how do we sort of judge this, but taking ownership and wanting to do more. So while as an intern or as at a starting role or job, you would be given A, B, C, D, but do you stick to those A, B, C, D, or do you go and do X, Y, Z? Right? Because you want to do something different, you want to learn, you want to go out of your way. And that real fire in the belly, I think it's something that we also look for, especially in youngsters when you come in, because you have so many great ideas, great energy. Are you all coming, to your managers, to your team, saying, look, I have this idea. Look, let's experiment. It may go bad, but I would like to take a chance and work on this. So, do you have that fire in the belly? And I think these are some of the three things, your learning ability, your determination, grit, and the fire in the belly that you demonstrate is something that, really differentiates you from everybody in the crowd in the interview process. And that's the way even CET as a company, we kind of have all our 3 stages designed, to select people who have this. So it doesn't come down to how intelligent you are. It doesn't come down to whether you're 100 on 100 on your paper. Do you have these 3 characters that will really make you thrive in a company? So over to you, Abhijit. I think I've said my piece.
Perfect, Sherry. I think you covered almost all aspects there, right? To be fair, we are also in line. The only difference probably could be that we hire in larger numbers, right? And the process obviously changes a bit with that. So I work for L&T Technology Services. I solely run the campus recruitment program here, if you want to put it that way, right? So on an average a year, we hire close to 1,500 to 2,000 freshers now, right? And primarily engineers. So out of the 1,500 to 2,000 engineers, I mean, if you want to look at the engineer count, it's close to 1,800 of them, if you 300 would be from the different streams, right? So what, as a process, what we really have is, as Sherry said, there is an aptitude test, right? But we go an extra mile there. We have the aptitude, we have a domain, we have a programming, and also a learning agility segment, which is there, right? Which is your gamified assessments. Now, the reason why we have this as a very big factor is we have 4 different segments, right? Is that we don't have a group discussion. When you hire in numbers, you cannot really have that as a session because you don't have the time to run in that much, right? And hence, our test clearance ratio, if you see, is only 10%. So there a major filtration happens there. And then there's another technical interview, and finally goes down the HR interview, right? Then the conversions are pretty good. So 50% tests, I mean, the technical interview clearances happen, and then the HR interview. Now, there's, I mean, as Sherry clearly highlighted, right? Our education system currently does not probably correlate with what we actually do at the workplace, right? And in every fresher, when we really come down to the HR interview aspect, we really go down to how keen and how much of an effort have you put in during your internship, right? Everyone does an internship as part of a curriculum. Many of them do it for the sake of a certificate as well. But what have you learned professionally, personally? What have you imbibed from that, right? For example, I think the first question most of us would start off during an HR interview is, can you introduce yourself, right? So when you actually ask that question, they have a very prefixed sort of, it's literally like, it's a radio sort of a commentary wherein you can just say, my name is so-and-so, I've scored this much. But none of us would be actually keen on hearing that, isn't it? Because you've gone through your resume. You've seen which school you're from, which college you're from. What we would really like to hear from you all is, how has your experiences been? How has your learning been different? How keen are you on learning new things, right? How keen on you, when we, okay, let's go back to the organization as such, right? We at LTTS thrive on our training, if you want to look at it, right? We really have an extensive training program. Now, we would look, forget about being a fit to the organization. We would first see how you could fit into the training program, because our training program is close to 6 to 8 months, right? Before you actually even join us. And we have an online version of it and an offline version of it, right? So initially we would engage you on an online training program, which we call as a step in. And then we have something called as a Genesis program, which is on the job. You come down to our office location, you're not yet our employees, you're already given that opportunity if you're offered by us, right? And if you clear all this, then you get converted as a full-time employee. So we first see if you can actually take up that load. So that the only way we understand is if you have the drive to go the extra mile, right? The passion to go towards or beyond your comfort zone. So that is something we really look at as an organization when we really hire. It never comes down to the marks, right? Yes, it's really good to score well because that helps you get admission in most of the colleges, gets you a good seat. Yes. What that comes with is a lot of companies comes into your college. Yes, all that works well. But when you actually want to nail it down when it comes to placement, it is your internship experience, the project you have done, right? What you've learned from it. Everyone does a project, but what have you really learned from it, right? How is this going to add value? Third thing is if you can go beyond that, why you are different from the rest of your peers who's attending that interview, right? So if you are someone who can go that extra mile, give that extra effort, and give it that best shot to sort of crack that interview. Everyone speaks well, all that is done, but end of the day, there's some spark which you really imbibe when you take that HR interview, right? I think Sherry and me can relate to this. We probably know if he's the right candidate right after that first question we ask them, right? The way they introduce themselves, we can take a call right there, right? Most of the time it has happened. We wouldn't spend more than 10 minutes in an HR discussion at times because we know, okay, this is the man, we want him right in our company because he can go the distance, right? How can you bring in that would be the major factor. That's it from my end, Shreyas.
Yeah. Thank you both of you, Sherry and Abhijit. So we'll move on to the next part. Now what I want to do is that I will ask you a couple of questions, and this is something interesting, I think, because I will ask you the HR questions which are typically asked in the HR interview. And I wanted to do this, because I actually want to know. I mean, for not just for me, also for my students as well, right? Like, what is your perspective on this? Like, how do you tackle these questions? And sometimes, there are very straightforward and simple answers to this. But maybe, in the mood of impressing the interviewers, we try to say something which is maybe puts the HR off. And maybe some person might speak something extra and which is not required, and maybe that's why they don't get selected. So I have taken a few of them, and which are most frequently asked, and then I want to see your response for that. So what I'll do is I'll ask each of you one question after the other. And if if the other person also wants to feels to add something to it, you can go ahead and add.
Yeah, sure. I think we'll do that.
So
Shreyas is putting us on the spot now.
Yeah, I know.
No, I mean, I just want to see like how do you feel, like how that we are supposed to answer this. So okay, I'll start with Sherry now. Okay, I think Abhijit already spoke about this a little bit when he was explaining the whole LNTTS scenario. So tell me about yourself. That's the very first question that is asked by an HR. But what I want to know is what does an actually HR expect from this question? Because all the things are already there in the candidate CV. So when you say, tell me about yourself, like what are you exactly looking at?
So and I also want to just correct over here. So this is a question irrespective of any setting, HR or business, will ask you this.
Yeah.
Any interviewer, let me just re-clarify, will ask you this question in tell me about yourself. So and I'm going to take up something that Shreyas said, right? Like what you say, we may say something that may put something off and all. I think it's more about and Abhijit will 100% agree with me, is bringing your authentic self to the table, right? So how are you authentic about who you as a person? How much are you self-aware? And that's what comes across when you answer this question of tell me about yourself, right? It's about us gauging your self-awareness level. So it's not about facts and figures and your chronology that you've stated out in the the CV that you've sent us. That's not what we are looking for. We want to know you as a person, right? What are certain your core values that you live by and don't live by, right? And how do we do that is by something that we call, and I'm giving you jargon right now and I'll make it very simple. So all of us, we use a tool called behavior events interview, right? So the BEI. So this is nothing but what you're looking at are what are the behaviors you're demonstrating, what are the actions that you've taken in your life. So someone will say, you know what, I am, an extremely honest person, and this you get a lot. Okay, I'm extremely honest. So we'll say, okay, so what about being honest? Like, what have you done that says that you are an honest person? How have you demonstrated that, right? Which we would like to know better. So you being an honest person doesn't really give us anything, right?
Yeah.
It's just another statement that you've made. So vis-a-vis, okay, somebody tells you a story, right? I once, was going by train and someone's wallet fell off, and I saw that there was, almost 5,000 rupees. And I thought, like, this poor man. So I ran all around and then found the CT and, and gave him the wallet, and that person gave. So now this tells me as a person that, okay, you have demonstrated, integrity, care, honesty through this action. Right, and that's how you engage an interview. You talk about the key life-changing moments and stories in your life that have defined you as a person, right?
Yes.
What has made you, right? So if it is Shreyas, because I can't see some of the names here, so say Rohit, right? What makes Rohit, right? There are always events in your life that have defined you, that made you who you are, right? And you will take all decisions based on that. So this requires a lot of self-reflection on each of y'all, and you are at the stage where you're finding out about who you are as a person, right? So take the time, understand who you are, right? Are you ambitious? Are you a go-getter? Are you an innovator, right? Do you like to tinker with things? Think about who you are as a person, right? Is your core lever to help humanity, and what are those events that have made you realize it? I think that's the question that people, which will really make you stand out and go, wow, with the interview when you say, tell me about yourself. So I think that's what we are looking for, Shreyas. I think really understanding the person that, will interact with us. And again, going back to the values, like, does the person's value then match with us, right?
Organization value.
Yes,
Organization
yes.
values.
Yeah.
And that's what the question, tell me about yourself, kind of helps us gauge. Abhijit, anything you would like to add?
Just to add here, one thing which we've keenly observed is that many of them try to fake it in this question, right?
Yes, correct.
That is when they lose it completely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easily identified that, this guy's prepared for this question. He's got a script, right? And he's just telling it to you. But when you try and dig deep into some of the pointers which he's made, is when he loses it, right? So the most important aspect I feel is just be you. It's okay if you don't have a lot of things to say when you say, tell me about yourself. You can be honest enough, I'm a simple person who lives by the day. That could be it. That's fine.
Absolutely.
But that is who you are, right? That is okay. But when you try and add a lot of jargons into it, then you just, to be honest, you'll just be digging your own grave most of the time.
Yeah.
Right? Which you don't associate with maybe.
Yeah. And that's what not to do. I think Abhijit has very, well brought in. Don't try to fake it or lie, because it's very easy to be caught in the interview.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go to the next question. Abhijit, the next question is, why do you want to join the company? So this is one of the another question which is asked. So is HR trying to assess the student's desire that as he has applied to the company, because he has already applied to the company, that means he's interested. So why is the question asked? Why do you want to join the company? So what are you expecting from them?
See, one of the primary things would be, we as an organization would have a clear set of values, right? Does the candidate or the student match that value, at least to an extent? No one matches 100%, obviously, right? But can we get him in line, or is he there, right? So that once he joins us, he can fit into our culture very easily. That's something which is very important for anyone joining an organization. For example, right, when I was doing my MBA, one of my lecturers came up to the class and said, this is my first semester, we're not even thinking of placements then, right? He said, you need to note down 5 companies that you would preferably want to be placed in going forward, right? And you need to go ahead and check their values and try and understand, do you have similar set of values which will match them, Now, and you should target only those companies, right? Because you wouldn't fit in anywhere else, that's for sure. You may get a job, but you wouldn't last there for long because the ideology and the thinking is totally different, right? Values of a company and your own values should go hand in hand in this aspect, and that is one of the primary reasons why do you really apply for this job? Despite you clearing an aptitude, a technical skill, you reach this far, right? It's obviously you are there, you want this job, but why is when it comes down to the values of the organization. And if you want to put in a simpler way, I mean, do you fit into the organization culture? That's it, right? Sherry, if you would like to add.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what Abhijit has spoken about. So I would put it in a different way. It's about how much investigation have you done from your side about the company.
Yes,
right?
That's
because I'll tell you what has happened, and this happens to a lot of people, even laterals when they join. There's a huge culture difference between certain companies. I'll give you with the entire industry. Okay, if you look at MRF and if you look at CEAT, okay, so MRF is a very high org structure, so that means there are many layers, right?
Yeah.
So there'll be like say 15, 16 layers, and it's very hierarchical, and CEAT is very flat. It's got 4 structures, layers only. So what this means, and say agility and all is part of our language, and MRS is more like SOP, so standard operating procedure. So people are used to follow an SOP and they'll do it. In CEAT, while we have SOPs, it's more about turn around, up to the decision le lo, and chalo kaam karo. Sorry, I'm going to switch to Hindi also sometimes, that's okay, kind of a thing. So what happens if somebody comes from these 2 different cultures, or if you are somebody who loves structure, like an MRF, right? And then you come into CEAT, you will find it chaotic, right? You'll find it an extremely chaotic company to work in, because things will come from every direction. You will not know what to do, because the expectation is you are smart enough to take those decisions, and you don't have any SOP tell you what to do. And secondly, there is no higher above in command. Like, it's pretty flat, right? So they'll expect you to take those decisions at your level. Here in MRF, you'll have 100 levels to give you a sign off before you take an action. And I'm not saying anyone is better than the other. I'm just saying that these are different ways in how organizations work and are structured. And what is a better fit for you? Because if you end up in the wrong one, right, it's going to really affect the way you work and how do you enjoy your work at the end of it. So it's more about you being ready and understanding what are you getting yourself into, right? And your first jobs are usually a big step. It really makes you get into the corporate world. So it's important that you make a right decision for yourself. It's not for us to, that we are taking a right decision. It's more about you making the right choice. So the question we asked there, right? Why this companies, we are trying to assess, have you made the right choice for yourself, right? It's about you as well, as much as it's about us. So.
Just to add here, right, from a personal front, when I do these HR discussions, right, I ask them, what do you know about L&T Technology Services? Why have you applied to this company? And they go back to L&T, right? To be frank, L&T is the parent company, but we function as 2 separate companies. We are an engineering, research and design company. L&T is a construction company. Because of its legacy, people know it really well, right? But LTTS is a company which boomed in recent time. Last 10 years is when we really grown up, right? So not many are aware, but what is the effort you put in to really understand what the company is, right? So that also matters. So I've observed that quite a bit when it comes to, especially when I am interviewing.
Yes, thank you.
Tire companies are far away from that. So like people don't even know what tire companies is. So
Thank you for the response. I'll go to the next question now. Okay, Sherry, the next question is, another typical question is that, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Okay, that's another common question. So just want to say this, that, how does a student, who is just 20 or 21, I don't know if he has done a lot of introspection about himself. So how do you think the student should tackle this question? Like, do they really know their strengths and weaknesses?
So there are 2 parts. I think people will ask this in various formats, the same question, okay? Like, strengths and weaknesses is one way of asking, what are the things that make you stand out? I think these are all various versions of the same question. What are your strengths and weaknesses? And I remember when I was in my, my interviews early on as a fresher, in an MBA and all that, and even in engineering, I remember people telling, "Look, you highlight some of your strengths as your weaknesses. Say that you're dedicated as a weakness." And all of this is so funny now looking back.
Yeah,
So please
yeah.
don't do that. Okay, first of all, again, I'm just going to link back to you being, and you. See, it's fine, Shreyas, sometimes, for a person to say, I don't know yet, right? It's absolutely honest and fine to give an answer that I'm not aware, I don't know, I'm still searching. This is also an absolutely correct answer to give, which is again linked to, being true to yourself. But again, see, always work from, and so there are various theories. I'm not going to go to theory, but nobody is weak. Okay, there's no such thing as weakness. We don't believe in that. It's like asking, kind of like a fish to climb a tree, and they say that, oh, fish is so weak in climbing a tree, right? And it
Yes,
links
correct.
it links to the same person, organization fit, and people fit over there. I think it comes back to that. What we are looking for from this answer is, for the role, whatever role you have come, or for the company, are there certain areas you think are strong enough, for that company? Let's keep it as simple as that, right? So it could be that, I am very good in maths, or I write algorithms extremely well. I feel I'll be a good fit for LTS, or it will be, I'm creative, right? Maybe this is not a fit, or my analytical ability is a little weak for this, and hence I think this is an area I would like to improve if I want to get into it. But I would be very good in design and drawing or something like that, right? So it's again contextual to the role that you're applying to, and what are the certain areas you have developed well that you feel will be a strength to it. Vis-a-vis, maybe there are certain areas you haven't developed yet. You would work on it later on, for that role. So that's I think again where we are trying to gauge, have you really thought about the role you're getting into? Okay, even or the company or the function. If you're getting into an engineering company, have you really thought about what are things that will help you, and what are the things that you at that time haven't got, which may be a hindrance. I think it's more about that. So there is no such thing, guys, as weaknesses. It's just about at that moment, in that time, what will help the role and what will not. I think, yeah, that's my perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Sherry. Abhijit, you want to add something to that?
No, I think Sherry covered that pretty well, right? As she said, there is no real weaknesses. There's another angle to this particular question. Most of the time, right, we don't really need to know what your strengths and weaknesses are either, right? It is about how confidently you can answer to that question. Are you spontaneous, right? Are you a quick thinker? All of these also comes into this, because at times people tend to go blank when you ask, okay, what are your strengths, right? They take a pause, but how do you handle that situation also matters. So probably I at times think from that perspective, and I know quite a few. So that is also there.
Okay. I think Abhijit, good point, because something that also I thought about, it's also you as a person and a personality, right? So there could be certain situations that would require to do public speaking, right? Maybe you're not so comfortable. Nobody's saying you're bad at speaking. You may not be comfortable doing that. It's okay to say that, I do have stage fright, right? But I'm working on it, maybe presenting to my teachers, etc., or in my family right now to kind of get over it. Your personal, triggers could be also part of areas that could be a strength or weaknesses. Doesn't have to be related to technical. So some could be, I am an extremely good writer. So I think I'll be able to write, your documents very well in your company. I think, as simple as that. What are you doing? That adds value. So look at yourself as a whole person, I think, for this answer.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Sherry and Abhijit. So we'll go to the next question. Yes, Abhijit. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? So this is another very typical question. I was asked this question, by the way. So what is the expectation from HR for this?
I was also asked during my interview.
So what is the expectation of HR? Like, what they want to see how far-sighted the person is, the candidate is. And also there's another question, I think, with this thing, like, what are your goals in life? I think that's another question.
I'm happy Abhijit got this question.
I'll be honest, you know what I answered? I said, I don't know. I'll be frank. So when I was sitting for an interview with the TA head of LTTS, right, I was asked this question: where do you see yourself 5 years down the line? Why do you take up this job, etc., etc.? I said, I don't know. I got this opportunity. I feel I can make a difference here, and that's what I said, right? But now when I think of it, I thought I could have answered it a little better, right? Now when I go back, I feel everyone does have a set of aspirations, right? It may not even be linked to the job. I'll be frank, right? You can even say, I want to get this job, earn enough to travel the world after 5 years. Could be a possibility. Right? It's a frank answer. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
But that is who you are, because once you join the company, they will get to know this about you, right?
Yes, correct.
Right?
Of course.
So I'm someone who's really enthusiastic about travel and things like that. And one of the reasons why I like earning is to travel. So that's okay, right? 5 years down the line, I expect to cover all the 29 states of India. I could say that answer, right? But that's okay if it's not related to your job. But again, such questions with the confidence you could answer with, and it's okay. And it's absolutely fine if you don't know the answer to it. Because when you're 18, 20, 21, whatever age is, you may be lost at that time. I was lost. I think Shreyas and Sherry, by their faces, I can see even they were pretty lost back then, right?
But what I answered was, I answered to the this was my HR interview. I answered them that definitely I would, be working in this company and I would be at the post of manager. So I told, like, in 5 years I want to grow. I want to grow in this company and reach at the level where I'll be handling things.
That's also
that's what I said.
I've seen guys, using this term like, I would like to be in a good position in our company, using the statements like that, right? It's a pretty good way to answer, but then when you go again, when you get counter questions to that, can you answer is a question, right? When you say our company, what do you think? How do you think you're going to grow here, right? What do you think are the next 3 steps you're going to take? What is it? Then you're going to dig your own grave, as I said earlier. You got to be very confident, and you need to know an answer to the answer again.
So I was asked this question actually very recently in my career dialogue by a CHRO, and I was as blank as I was 10 years back. So, I think one way that helped me during my coaching process, and this might help you guys also. So again, looking at where you'll be 5 years down. I'll rephrase the question. Okay, 5 years down, I think what do you think you would have done that you would feel satisfied as an individual? Like, really think of it. Like, what would have made you genuinely happy and satisfied inside? And as Abhijit said, traveling and covering all 30 states would make him satisfied generally internally. I think you have to also look at from that perspective. What is something that will really make you happy, like satisfied? मैंने ये कर लिया है 5 years में. I think I'm pretty happy and satisfied where I am right now. And it could be even being in the same position. It's not about position or growing. It could be working on something externally. It could be just going out and doing CSR. So there is something called as a wheel of life, I think you all would know about, which puts different pegs of your life in, from your life, your career, ambition, sports, family, etc. And you ask a set of questions on where do you stand. And generally you have to see that the score is 0 to 9. So if anything is skewed, you're not in balance. You'll never be sure about what makes you happy, because if you say you're a workaholic, you've kind of given up time for your family, right? Yeah. Or, and all of these things. So 5 years down the line, it could be as simple that my wheel of life, I want it very balanced, right? That also could be, what will keep you satisfied, that you're able to give enough time to everything. So really look at and reflect on, 5 years down, what will, sort of keep you happy or satisfied, right? It could be, I would have done my PhD in 5 years for an MTech, right? That itself could be a very good answer at your age to think about, right? So whether it is higher studies, whether it is, building a career, whether it is having, backpacking across the globe post-COVID, right? So think about these few things, or even, making your family dreams come true. Just think about what will make you happy or satisfied. So I think that is how you should answer this question.
Just to add that, I think if you go back to the previous generations, right? You would have people who are very committed to the company and go the extra mile just to ensure work is done.
Yeah.
Right. But now things are changing. I think even organizations have started realizing that. So it is okay if your answer is not organization related. It is okay if it's for yourself. It is absolutely fine.
Absolutely.
Right? And organizations have started to sort of respect those decisions as well now.
That's very true, Abhijit. Very true.
Yes. Okay, we'll go ahead with the next one. Sherry, the next one is okay. This is scenario, by the way. So
Okay.
if there are, if there are two candidates with exactly the same profiles, okay. So how do you choose among the two if you had to select only one of them?
So we I
Exact
think spoken through all this right now. I think Abhijit and I about the whole organization culture fit. I think that's how we kind of differentiate the two people. While so I'm just saying that is not the one and all. Functional, technical is the first step towards entering for a job, right? I think you have to cross that threshold. Your CVs or your interviews, your technical knowledge, your functional knowledge will get you through the door. That's your first step, and that's, I would say, bare minimum. Post, and that's what you're asking, right? When two people have crossed this door, have that bare minimum, I think the one that takes you ahead is, what differentiates you from the other is not that you are a super extraordinary. It's about how well do you fit now in that door with the company's value, right? So if your values matches the company's values, you're a good fit, and both of us will be happy. That will be that's how we'll take this decision. Absolutely.
Okay.
Abhijit,
Thanks,
anything else
Sherry.
you'd like to add?
Anything else?
No, I think I am with you on that, right? It comes down to, I mean, if you have to nail it down, it'll always come down to the cultural fit, because you may have two extraordinary talent, but who would actually work for us, and both of us could learn from it, right? Right. The candidate should also get to learn equally and get to grow. We should also get benefit out of it. So it's always the candidate who would fit perfectly into the culture.
And honestly, we also are humans. We make mistakes, Shreyas. We have done it, and we have seen the repercussions of it in the organization, at various levels, where people have come in, geniuses, very smart, but they're not able to fit with the culture. It then makes them unhappy, makes the teams around them unhappy. There's no productivity coming out of it. It's something that it really affects the company and the people around a lot. So this is a critical lever for us, I think, to really get the organization value fit right.
Okay, thank you, both of you, for the answer. The next question for Abhijit is, how much does extra co-curricular activities and hobbies really matter to the company? And when the HR asks you that?
See, to be frank, in my opinion, it matters a lot, right? I'll tell you why. Because, you may be hired for a particular role, or we're looking to hire for a particular role. But when you're good at academics, co-curriculars, you're into multiple things, it naturally means you're a multitasker, which is one, which a lot of companies currently look for, right? I mean, gone are the days when you just do your job, just focusing on one bit and go do 9 to 5 and you're done, right? Gone are those days, right? We want people who can multitask. And especially if people have been into extensive co-curricular arts or sports, can balance life a lot better, right? I mean, they can handle stress, they can handle failures, especially sports. If you're looking at someone, because I'm coming from that background, right? I can associate things. Because, for example, I played a bit of cricket at a professional level, so I do know how, when things are getting tough, I do know how to handle it. I wouldn't burst out. I wouldn't, I would take it on my stride, right? So one thing is that, right, you know how to handle various situations because you've already gone through at different phases in your life. But someone who's only into academics may not get that opportunity. I'm not saying all of them would have or would not have, but may not get that opportunity because you haven't gone out of that comfort zone of yours, right? You're studying, you're getting a job, okay, fine. But when you're academically good, when you're also, you may be a dancer, that's good enough, right? But you would have participated in competitions, you would have won a few, you would have lost a few. You would have cried when you lost, but you would have really felt happy when you would have won, right? So those failures have helped you grow ahead. So similarly, when it comes to an organization, you would have bad days and good days, right? How would you handle that? And I think this aspect or this question can perhaps correlate to that aspect of it. Suri, you would like to add something there?
Yeah, Sherry, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll just give us a small example. I think what Abhijit said. When I was we had this fresher, not that much. I think his CV was pretty simple and blank. But the only thing that stood out and that caught my eye was that he did play at state and national level cricket. right? And I was like, "ठीक है, इस बंदे को have you taken sales, right?" So that's it. Like he, didn't have any sales experience, pressure, but I know he had played cricket. I just felt that he would be a right fit for the company because of this one thing that he has done. Because as Abhijit said, with cricket comes so many other things about the person, right? That really tells you he's a player, right? He has stamina. He's dealt with various difficult situations on the field, made judgments, call, right? And it did work out good for us. That person did do extremely well in a sales environment. And this is just one of the examples. We really look, pick out people on, things that they have done. And I won't say it is extracurricular. Like today, people are saying extracurricular activities. I think it's just about the various things that you are into, right?
Yeah.
So
correct.
this helps us to talk about. And sports is very important. One of the important things why sport is important, because today's environment is also very stressful. I think people don't understand how important it is being fit, right? Being fit is extremely important. And I'll tell you, we have this wellness chief wellness officer who's come in. She diagnosed various people. We had 25, 26-year-olds with heart condition today because they're so stressed out with work. And people who are into their own health, who are into fitness, if you are fit, you can do work fit, you are mentally stronger as well. And that's why we kind of look for people who are really into sports. We look for people who are creative, like into musicians, dancers, because these people who can de-stress, who can be creative and come out of the box ideas when there are problems, right? The whole concept of design thinking and all that comes into the picture unconsciously, right? The people who are left-sided will be able to come out with really good ideas. So I think adding to what Abhijit is saying, not taking everything what he's taken is absolutely bang on. And just adding to how various how do we also judge various buckets of extracurricular activities, right? And what you are doing and how you're spending your time to develop yourself. Because again, we're looking at a holistic people. So that also tells us how much time are you investing in your own development. Because this also tells you later on when you come in the company, you won't just stick to that SOP and do ki yahi mera kaam hai, right? This is all that I will do. How will you go out of it to really continue developing? Because at every stage, you have to keep developing. Otherwise, you'll stagnate. Whether it is our stage or 10 years down the line, you will see, as people go, go up the ladder, they learn more, not less, and they do more, right? And that's how extracurricular activities helps us gauge that.
Yes, thank you for the answer, Sherry and Abhijit. Now let's go to the next one. So Sherry, I think this is kind of a similar question. Why should we hire you? That's another question that is mostly asked. And so does the candidate has to tell something
I think
apart from his qualities?
It's like a whole circle.
Yeah. So should we go to the next one, or you want to add something to it?
This is breaking up.
Hello.
No. So the question is, why hire you?
Why should we hire you? That's the question.
My signal is a bit poor.
No, we can hear you fine. Yeah,
we can hear you.
And like, do the students have to? Okay, so and do the students have to say something extraordinary in that question? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that's what I'm asking. Like, do they need to add something extra to the whatever they mentioned in the CV? Do they need to add something extra when they say like, I'm apart from all these things that I've mentioned, I also know this, or I do this, something like that?
Yeah. No, so I think why should we hire you is again mix of versions of the questions we have already asked, right?
Yes.
It's basically the same thing of telling me about yourself, and weaknesses. It's kind of a mix of two in a different way of saying, why should we hire you, kind of thing. And also, again, coming back to the question is, how well have you assessed that this is the right company and job for you, and how much do you want to get in? I think that's also an underlying current that we look at into this question. So have you come into the discussion because my friends are sitting, everybody's here, and I have to get a job, and it's that pressure. It's fine. I'm not saying it's wrong, right? Different situations might be there, but have you really thought about the impact it will have of coming here? Why should I hire you is a combination of all of these things coming into the picture, like the end result funnel question of why should we hire you, right? And again, there's nothing right or wrong. It's about you knowing that this is the right fit for you, and then you putting yourself out there of what are your key strengths that will really make you a best fit for this company. I think that's what in a nutshell this question talks about.
I just want to add something to it. Like, how do you gauge? Whether the person what he's telling is the absolute truth, or not absolute truth, but some really meaningful, that he means what he's telling. Or he might be, like as Abhijit said, people come with some scripts and they just keep on reading. Okay, I'm this, I'm that. But how do you gauge it? Like, what is a
So there are various ways, so I'll tell you some of these are like, they're not, I wouldn't say they're tricks, but then we kind of ask very difficult follow-up questions to this.
Yeah.
And when you say difficult follow-up questions, I know this was asked to me in one of my, after my internship question in Amazon. So the lady was like, this business works with US and it's a night job where you'll be working midnight and not in the morning. Will you still do it? Right? We use something similar and we tell them the truth. See, this is going to send you to, an off-site in some factory in Chennai that is going to be even 4 hours from Chennai. Like, there's no civilization around. You don't know the language. You don't know the people around. Will you be comfortable working in such an environment? Right? That's what it is. So we will put very tough, or if it's a sales job, we'll say Kanpur, wahan pe the dealers and all, they roam around with guns. Will you be able to talk to truck drivers and all? And it has happened. It's not that. So it's like, will you be able to tackle this? Right? This is the reality of the job. Are you still interested? Right? So I think these are some ways in which we kind of ask you those really difficult questions to really think about what you're getting yourself into. Like, playing the devil's advocate. So here we are trying to scare you from the job. Like, at the start, we're like, okay, all of you all come in, you want to hire the best. But here we'll really scare you about the job. And not to scare you, but to really give you a true, holistic, real picture. So as, we also need to be authentic and real. So we're not here trying to game you or lie to you on what's the reality on the other side. We will give you the reality. Are you still ready to plunge wholeheartedly even after this? I think that's how we will get to know. Abhijit, your tactics, I think.
No, bang on again. I think there's nothing much from me. I mean, that's true, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay, thanks, Sherry. So Abhijit, the next question is, if the candidate is nervous and fumbling while answering, how can they save their interview? Or how should they go about it after this happens? If they are really nervous and they start fumbling, they're not able to answer. So what can they do to make a comeback to the interview?
Okay, there are two sides of it. Okay, there are at times interviewers realize that and then say, you can take a minute, you can take a second, and then you can relax and then continue. And it's absolutely okay if the candidate also says that, I'm sort of panicking. Can I just take a minute? Can I just take a deep breath and then continue? It's okay, right? We've all gone through this phase and we will certainly understand. And especially if you're someone from the HR, will be empathetic enough to understand that bit that, this is just another human being going through those normal situations that anyone else would go through. But it's okay, right? For example, if I observe someone, I always say to them, you can take a minute, relax. This is just another discussion we're having. Don't think it's going to be, helter-skelter. It's going to be just another discussion. So just relax and just gather your thoughts, right? That's important. So I would say that, but I also, even before we start off, at times the students just say that, so can I have a minute? Maybe, I'm a little stressed. I'm a little nervous. I just finished my technical interview. I do not have enough time or a gap. So I'm a little let me just gather my thoughts. And I'm saying, absolutely fine. Take your time, right? So it can be two ways. But if you're uncomfortable, nervous, or if you're sort of in a panicky situation, you can always ask for a minute. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very true. We are not heartless monsters over here on the other side. we,
No,
we,
just
it happens, and we do. We can. It's easy to see. We ask them. I know people have had even panic attacks. They've been very easy. You have to calm the person down. We want them in the best state. Right, I have actually gone on campuses, and these MBA campuses, they have this insane, and Abhijit, how they start at 4 a.m. in the morning and stuff like that. It's
12
so
a.m. I've done interviews at 12 a.m.
Absolutely, we do GDs till night at 11, and the poor guys are so dehydrated, stressed, and we are screaming at them is why are you, we understand, but the person has not even slept. Let them come later in an interview, let them sleep it out, let them be in a better state to answer. So we want to have you all in the best state, and hence, we will also pause and stop the interview, or, you can take even a 1 hour break and come back. It's fine, right? But ask for it. Tell people that you're nervous. I know while people can see it, it's okay to ask for help. I think that's what's most important in that situation.
And I think that also shows the other side of you. I feel,
Yes, absolutely.
You aren't hesitant. You're very honest about yourself, and that will also help in your job, which is sort of a signal saying that you're honest to yourself. And we would expect you to be honest to the job also. That itself is another sort of a sort of indirect communication towards us, right?
Okay. Thanks, Abhijit and Sherry. We'll go to the next one. Sherry, is another situation, kind of a question. If the person has nailed the technical interview completely, and he doesn't have a good communication skill, so how does the HR, or the panel take this into consideration?
Great question, Shreyas. I think very valid also. And I'll put this into two parts. Okay, there is one about spoken English, right? And then there is communication skills. These are two different things, and I think people try to mix and confuse the two. I have seen people who speak excellent English, flawless, and they'll be like the Shashi Tharoor, but very poor communicators. So there's a difference. I want people to understand that communication and speaking English are two different things. And, we go to a lot of regional colleges. I know Abhijit also must be going to a lot of regional colleges. There will be your, native language influence while people are communicating. We understand that, people will think in Konkani and speak in English. It happens, right? And that happens in all the cases. And there might be grammatical errors and all of it. We understand those situations. There's nothing bad. As long as now coming to a communication perspective, right? Are they able to get their idea across, irrespective of how they speak, right? Is what we are looking at. Are they able to, bringing your idea across, when you use the word rambling and all of this, comes from how self-aware you are. So do you say, speak to the point? Are you able to, paint a picture, tell a story? Are you genuine in what you're saying, right? So it's not about the quality or the words or the great English that you're speaking, or the Queen's English, something like that. It's just about your ability to get your ideas across to the interview, what you want to tell them. I think that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely. If I could just add on to this, there's another side of it, okay, which I particularly observed. I don't want to regionalize it, but especially when I go down to colleges in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, right, they have a lot of, their mother tongue influence coming in. And they're so comfortable and confident speaking in that particular language. It is not that they do not know English or they do not know how to communicate in English, but it's just that they're so comfortable there and confident about probably Gujarati or Tamil or even Malayalam in Kerala, right? It is just, and they're they're grammatically pretty good. Their spoken English is actually good. It is just coming down to confidence, right? And for example, when I had this instance last year when I was in Gujarat on a couple of campuses, right? They would start in Gujarati too, right? And then when you insist, you will talk to them in English, but they'll only talk to you in Gujarati, right? And I don't understand Gujarati. Right? Then I tried, can you speak in Hindi? He said, I know English, but I'm comfortable in Gujarati. Right? These are two different aspects, absolutely. Then when you insist, they speak pretty good English. It comes down to that as well, right? So it's okay if you make mistakes while communicating in English. If you're not very confident, it's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine. The only way you're going to improve is by speaking a lot more. So it's okay. If you're using an interview as a platform, go ahead. It's fine.
And the thing is, English is the business language.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, correct.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's just about that. We have to use this language, right? And we can't use any other language because that is the official mode in the corporate setting to communicate. Yeah.
Yep.
So you have to be comfortable with it, but we're not asking you to be, experts, and just speak fluently on the go. Yeah.
Because language is one thing can always learn, right? You
Yeah,
go to a new place, you
absolutely.
learn that language. So that's
Yes,
okay.
yes.
About developing
Yes,
confidence.
yeah. Thanks for the answer. And okay, this is the last question for Abhijit. So, is there something as first impression? Okay, first impression in with respect to your HR interview. So, maybe a couple of questions that you ask at the first, or when the person enters, and how the behavior and the body language is. It. So, is there something for an HR round where that affects the flow of the interview, or
Absolutely, yes. To be fair, I think I even mentioned it earlier. We can
yeah, you
probably,
mentioned it earlier.
select someone with that first response which they give. Right? It is not just about the answer. It also comes down to the body language of a person. Right? How confident you are feeling about yourself. How are you carrying yourself? Right? Would we? I mean, for example, if Sherry was saying if you're hiring someone for a sales role, right? Looking at that person, do you think he can actually go ahead? We can represent him as LTTS, right? We are, ultimately, when you're pitching for someone for a sales role, it's just an example, right? Can he represent the organization? And that we can probably even decide on the first go, right? Because communication matches but the way he would invite, sort of walking into the interview room, the way you probably, that body language matters a hell lot. So probably at times, and I have made a couple of decisions where, give me a quick introduction of yourself, and the way they start off, I said, okay, this is the guy. So that has happened with me at least. I think Sherry
Yeah.
also would have had a couple of.
Yeah, so it's actually very natural process, Shreyas, and all of us here, we do it unconsciously. I think we make judgments about a person in the first 30 seconds of somebody walking in. So that kind of, that is how psychology works. That's how our brains are wired, right? So it's sometimes it is definitely a make or break in the first 50 seconds. And then what happens is, this is the confirmation bias part where the interviewer will sort of confirm. So if he likes you or if she likes you, they will work out what are the things that confirm that why they have already sort of selected you. And if they first instance they feel that no, this is, I don't think this person might be a right fit, the questions will be in such a way that they're trying to sort of agree to that and see how they can reject you, and that sets a context to your interview flow and everything. Right. So whether it is even in a virtual setting, right, or today in a virtual setting and tomorrow it will be face to face, right? That first impression, right? How have you, sort of organized yourself and you're there for the meeting. So if it's for example, it's a PwC or some hi-fi consulting company, then you have to wear suit and boot and be your best sharpest self, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the expectation. Versus if you're joining like an informal culture, and if you come in suit and boot, they will be like, Amazon will look at like, who's this person, right? Because Amazon, they wear about anything. They don't expect you to be in suit.
Yeah.
They want you to be casual, right? So it's
They go to work in shorts, so
exactly. So that's how it is. That's a difference. And again, coming back to what's the culture of that organization, how are they? Versus maybe see at where we are like shirts and casual informals kind of a thing. So it's all about that fit into the company and how do you reflect that fit. So that first impressions helps a lot. So even in a virtual setting, if you're having a virtual interview, and these are just some tips and all, don't have Twitter in the back of your room, right? Like that's one thing that you would just take basics to care of, because that will make an impression first thing to the interviewer who's sitting on the other side. And versus if you keep your video off, right? You want to see the face to face and talk to the person and all of these things. So simple things, kind of, fortunately or unfortunately, make assumptions about you immediately to the person on the other side, and then it will take a lot to kind of break that assumption, especially if it is negative. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, true. Thanks, Abhijit and Sherry, for your responses. So now I guess we will open the session for the students, and they can type in their questions, and I can take them, or they can unmute themselves, and if they want to go ahead and ask the questions, that is also fine by all of us. So yeah, students, you can start putting in your questions now. So I think there's one question already put by Siddhant Kunde. Okay, if you are an electronics engineer, why do you want to join an IT company? And how do you answer these kind of questions? I
Yeah.
think we all, I don't know, I think Sherry, we are from ETC background, so we
Yeah.
have had this
And
question a lot.
I have joined an IT company, so I joined Infosys before I did Accelerate. So,
Yeah.
I think I will, try to answer this question. So, yes, so luckily Infosys, they were asked this question because their philosophy is that you can be an engineer from any background and they will train you, right? So, hence, somebody like an Infosys or TCS may not ask you this question because it's anyway not relevant to them. Maybe somebody from smaller company, or I'll put it in a different way. If you're electronics and the tire company comes to ask you, why do you want to join a manufacturing company, or say a small nascent IT company, I think it's again pitching your sense, because look, at the end of it, all engineering fundamentally are similar, right? Your ability to analyze, right? So an analytical ability, problem solving, right? How do you manage projects? I think these are some key underlying concepts that you want to bring forward as your strengths when you answer this question, saying that because in an electronics and an IT, somewhere you do need fundamental understanding of algorithm, understanding of logic, and all of these things will not change in both the fields put together, right? So again, it's about talking about what are your fundamental strengths, and then how this will help you grow in a environment such as the IT company that's come in, which is again related to the values and culture, right? So they are not looking for your fundamental electronics. I have done 8085 processor versus not doing something, right? And how that has helped you or not. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for this, like, do you understand what are the fundamental connection between these two, how this will help you grow, and how do you fit with the organization.
Okay. Thanks, Sherry. I think that makes it very clear. Abhijit, you want to add something to that?
Absolutely nothing. But if I just had to add something, then if you feel that Infosys or an IT services company is not your place, then you shouldn't apply for it. Actually, if you feel you really want a
Yeah,
core job, wait for those
Yeah.
core companies.
Yes.
Don't lose out on the opportunities, right? Because as I said, you need to sort of pick and choose those companies as early as possible, where you can match your values and culture.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks, Abhijit. So, okay, there's another question by Professor Sachin. Is from mechanical department, and he's worked at Tata Motors for 7 years before joining us at Don Bosco College. And I think this was the same question. Actually, this was the question which I also wanted to ask you guys, and I thought I'll ask you it later, maybe at the end. So the question is that students have, many of the students have plans of going for higher studies, like masters or MBA. So most of the times, in the HR interview, this is taken as a negatively. So what is the best way of keeping your personal goals secret, and take the first opportunity to work for some time in the company, and then maybe shift to your goals? So how does that fit into the scenario? Should they hide it, or should they go ahead and tell them directly, okay, I'm going to work over here for a couple of years, and then maybe I'll go and look out for masters, maybe abroad, or something in MBA or something. So how do you tackle this?
Yeah. Abhijit, would you like to take it? Then I'll add after that.
Certainly, because I think I get a lot of these questions nowadays, right? There are two ways of handling it, right? One, if you're short that you're not going to even join the company, or just there to get the experience, that is separate. Let's leave that aside, right? The other side of it, those who really want to pursue higher education, maybe after gaining experience for a couple of years, right? One way of asking is you can always ask the HR, that what are the opportunities the companies provide, right? Because most of the companies these days, for example, we have tied up with BITS Pilani, right, for your MTech program as such, right? So, and the only criteria is you'll have to spend at least 2 years in the company to even apply for that. So by then you would actually gain some experience before you actually pursue for your MTech, right? So it's always like a give and take thing there. So there are companies which provide that opportunity for you, but if you're really keen on not sitting for placements and you're sure, right, you're going to go for a higher education, from a personal front, I would really suggest that you shouldn't be taking up that interview. One, because there could be someone else who's losing out on opportunity, right? It could be a classmate, right? It could be an instance where there's someone who also really wants a job, and they lost out to you, maybe, right? Then you're sure you're not going to take up that job. So maybe you can avoid that. I would still leave that to personal opinion, right? And the other side of it, there's a lot of effort even put in by the company to conduct that interview, right? arranging panels, speaking to them. They would be having multiple client calls, works, project, and get it. Then when you realize that, okay, this guy's not even going to join the company, at times, yes, as they said, it could get a little disappointing. So I would always suggest, if you're very sure you're not going to take it up, I would again leave it to personal opinion, but it's always better not to take up that interview because there are two sides of it.
Yeah. So I like to add, it also depends from a company perspective. Okay. So as we said in CET, we take say 12 to 13 people. We somewhere in back of the mind, we know that 2 years, 3 years down the line, 25% of the people will leave for further studies, right? We already take that into consideration. And it's a good thing because in CET, I think the entire philosophy is that we want people to grow. And we have a lot of people, especially our GET batches, who go do MTech and they come back and join us, right? Because we are very confident about our value system and employee culture. So we and we have a boomerang policy. A lot of people have gone out and come back to our company. So we encourage that people do their further studies, go, continue. I have a GET who connects with me and he's doing his MTech now in MIT. In NIT, I think K. And he messaged me, look, CET is on campus for recruiting. I'm like, which year are you ready to come back to us? So all of those kind of, we do connect with our GETs very closely, which is a graduate engineer training program. That's what we call it. And we are happy. And if somebody has told us, expressed early on that, this is something that I would look forward to, and we find the person extremely bright, great fit for the company, we'll still take a bet on that person. Honestly speaking, right? We'll still come in, add value to us as 2 years as GET, and we will find options because, as you said, we also have a lot of programs in MTech, etc. that we, so we have a wisdom quest policy through which we, give them an opportunity to work and study as well. So they can take that up. And if they find, no, I'd rather go and study, we are happy, and we're happy to bring them back on board as well. So, but as Abhijit said, right, if, be sure of why you really want to be there. If you want to do your MTech, I would say just do it immediately after you've finished your this.
Yes.
If you want to get into corporate and get experience, that is fine, but that works better, I think, if you're doing an MBA and maybe not so much for an MTech. I think, doing your BTech and MTech adds better value if you want to become a co-professional personally.
Yes, correct. Yeah, thanks for the responses. Okay, we'll take the next question. Okay, this is another question also I also wanted to ask you. When there's a question such as, what is your expectation on salaries? So how do you tackle that question? If the salary package is not mentioned, and if you ask question something like that, or maybe in the I think for a experienced person they ask the question, right? That what is the salary that you expect?
Correct. Exactly. So that's what for freshers, I don't think you all should worry about, because most campus companies that will have a standard package for everybody. And they will share it. I know there's nothing to hide about this. Somebody's hiding, there's something wrong. You should not apply into that company if they're not telling you what the salary is. Are they to take on it? That's my take. But okay, later on, I think it's a different ball then, right? Because you have built a certain brand, a certain value that you bring to the table. And their salary negotiations are very upfront. I think it's just about being upfront about your expectations. What's the market value? Sometimes you might have to do a little research on what companies are giving, out there. Largely, I think the rule of thumb is, usually you go for a 20% to a 35% hike to your current salary. And, unless there is something extremely terrible happening with you and you would just want to escape your company, that's a different talk. But it's a very open, I think there's nothing to hide, or it's salary, it's very normal, it's a professional conversation. You shouldn't be afraid of asking and stating what your expectations are. And the companies will come back. It's a dance, right? They'll come back and say, look, we can maybe stretch so much, or we can, give at this amount, will you be okay? So that conversation happens over there. But as a fresher, I don't think this question really applies to freshers, honestly speaking.
True. Almost every company has a flat salary structure, which is rolled up right away, right? Yeah. That's there. And there won't be any scope of negotiation there anyways.
Yeah.
Even from an MBA or MTech, when you go and you say, I have X number of experience, it doesn't matter. We consider you a fresher from campus.
Fresher only, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks. The next question is, I think you have answered this question. Like, what kind of attitude does an HR expect from the candidate? Asked by Tanmay. Do you want to add anything to that? I think we have spoken about this.
Yeah, I think we spoke about being the grit, learning ability, fire in the belly. I think these are some of the things that being authentic. I think these are some of the attitudes that we really expect. I think Abhijit, we should also do on what not to do in terms of bringing an attitude to
True.
the table.
True.
That is very, very important, right? And sometimes I think this, I don't know, different people have different pet peeves, but for me, I think a know-it-all attitude is something because
Yeah, yeah,
no, because that tells me somebody has stopped learning, right? So
yeah.
if the whole,
Yes.
I think you'd hear in all these ninja and action movies and all the sensei telling you that you put a water in a filled cup and it just overflows. I think if you sort of come off of that person that I know it all, or I have all the knowledge and I have experienced everything in my life, kind of a situation, then there it tells me that there's no scope for you to learn. I think that's something that come not to bring that to the table would be one. And second, I think Abhijit spoke about confidence, which is very good, but overconfidence, overselling yourself.
It's about being humble when you're confident.
Yeah.
Right? That's what
Correct.
sells you. That's the most
Exactly.
important thing.
Exactly. So like I'll be quick gun Murugan and I can do everything and anything. I think that also is something that
won't
will
work
put
out.
people off. Yeah, that would work off. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Another question is, if you're asked whether you're ready to join, and if you have to join somewhere else, but there is some personal condition due to which you cannot, how do you tackle the situation? Okay. Wait 1 second. I have not understood it properly. If you have asked whether you're ready to join, and you have to join somewhere else, but there is some personal condition due to which you cannot join. Join where? With this company or the other company? Yeah,
I
Priya,
think
can
the
you
question
clarify the
is-
question?
Yeah, I think the question here is you've been offered for a particular location, but due to certain personal reasons, you can't relocate
Yes, maybe.
post accepting the offer, maybe, right? There's something that's come up now or something like that. Again, you can be honest enough and ask the HR, right? Is there any scope for me working out of this location for at least a time being until things settle down? If not for a long term, right? If there is an option, we'll obviously come back. And in the current scenario, most of us are working from home, so location wouldn't matter. At least I'm looking at it for at least until December 2021. That is going to be the scenario.
Yes.
There will be flexibility, but otherwise, in general, you can ask. There's no hesitation there, right? You might have accepted the offer for maybe Gujarat, but you're currently in Bangalore and you're not in a state to relocate because something's happened back home. You can ask. I would start off from Bangalore and then maybe once things settle down, I'll move to Gujarat. You can sort of have that flexibility. I think most companies would agree to it also, until and until there's some dependency.
Yes, but at an early age, just to add here, I think is that don't have any location constraints. I think it's very important that when you're young, you can travel, right? You can go to different location. It might become more difficult unless there's some extreme family emergency and you don't have any dependence. Your family doesn't have dependence. I think be open to locations. Right, really go wherever it really builds experience and your understanding and will grow you as a person, and later on, yes, there could be a lot of other challenges that may come in that may restrict your movement later in your career. So you'll never be able to build those experiences at a later stage. So I would say early on be flexible to locations and where companies are willing to send you, and not to restrict yourself. Yeah.
Just to add there, I think most of the companies even now give you a letter of intent which will not have a location or a joining date, right? When you're actually initially offered, most of the companies now don't have your location. They expect you to have the flexibility. But yeah, the option which I gave, you can only use when it's the extreme situation, right? There's something which really needs you to be there. Otherwise, always be open, flexible, because you need to consider it as an opportunity for you to learn something new, right? You're going somewhere else, you're learning culture, work, a lot of things comes into it.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I think, yeah, those are the questions. Anybody else has any more questions? Then they can drop in or they can unmute yourself and ask a question. And we have already exceeded our time, so we'll keep it short because we have another event at 6 o'clock. So yes, guys, if there are any more questions, you can go ahead and unmute and ask. Yes, Raj, what is the question you wanted to ask?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, basically, it is a corona situation right now going on. So, basically, all the interviews which are going on are in the online mode. So,
Yeah.
sometimes it happens that the HR, maybe because of some reasons, they don't show themselves. So, my question is, we as a person, we tend to, answer some questions looking at the person in front of us.
Yeah.
So, how to go ahead with those type of situations? Like recently, I got into one technical interviews, and the interview was had closed his mute, he had muted himself as well as he had muted his video. So he had asked me some questions, and I didn't know where when to stop and when to go on continuously.
I
Okay.
think that's good. I mean, I think this is not a very good practice. I think Abhijit also will tell an interview, ideally an interviewer. So there are certain etiquettes, right? You have to follow. And as we started off first, can we have people's video on? Can we see you? And as an interviewer, also it's important, Raj, that that's happened. You pause and you ask the person, "Sir, are you there? Can I see you?" Get some reaction from the person on the other side. And especially if you feel uncomfortable, Raj, it's very important to state, that I'm not sure if you're there. Is it okay if I can see you? And it'll be better for me to answer this, even if I can hear you. So make it known that maybe you're uncomfortable with the situation and you would like it to be on. So unless it's really a technical, then it's might as well you can go on a phone, Raj, right? If the video is off, you can say that we can have a connect interview. There's no point of doing coming on a Zoom call, right? There at least you
Yes.
can
Yes,
in person.
Correct.
So yeah, so see, as an interviewee, don't think you don't have a power, right? You have an equal amount of power when you're sitting in that seat on the other side. You're not the only person in the hot seat. Even the interviewer is accountable for their actions and how they conduct themselves and what they're saying, because they need to get the best. And Raj, if you're the best, they should fight for you, right? So don't think that you don't have the power to ask for better for you in that situation.
Okay, that's nicely put, Sherry. Abhijit, you want to add something to that?
No, perfect. Don't sort of feel that since you are being interviewed, you don't have the rights to ask few important questions, right? And I think it's basic etiquettes to come on video when you're interviewing someone. If
Yes,
someone's not doing it, it's not right. Absolutely, that's true.
Okay, thanks. So I think those are all questions that we had for today's session. So before we wind up, yeah, okay, we have with us Professor Avila Naik, our Training and Placement Officer from the college, and also Professor Sachin Turi from Mechanical Department, who handles the mechanical placements. So hello, ma'am, and hello, Sachin sir. So can we have a word from you before we wind up?
Hi, Sherry. Hi, Abhijit.
Hello, hi,
Hi.
ma'am. Hi.
First of all, I need to thank Shreyas for this, because this entire event, is a big round of applause for Shreyas,
Yeah.
because this event was planned, organized, executed by him. And a big thank you, Shreyas, to you for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Sherry and Abhijit, as a training and placement officer, I have, in fact, a big challenge in front of me. My institute started in the year 2011. Okay, the first batch passed out in 2015. Since it's not an age-old institute, we are growing. It's a big challenge for me as a training and placement officer to have these companies coming to my institute, for placements. Basically, because they are into not most, but many of the big companies are into tier 1. They go to tier 1 institutions or tier 2 institutions, and they have a certain tie-up with institutions, so they go only to these institutions. So it's really a big challenge for me to get these institutions to this campus. So as HR people, with regard to recruitment, what is it that you expect from me or from my institution, so that we get the best companies, or we get those companies that are ready to pull the best lot from my college?
So I'll take this question first. I would say, in CET, and we have a partner. So CET is part of a larger group company of RPG, and we have KEC International, which is an EPC company similar to an LLT. I think they compete in a similar space, and they do mass recruitment. Again, 300 they will take in a year versus us. We take 12, 13 people. We are primarily engineering companies, right? So mechanical, civil, I think electrical are some of the areas that we look at. And we don't go to tier 1 companies. That's not the game that we play. We do go for maybe a tier 2 company or a tier 3 engineering companies. One reason is because manufacturing as a setup has been set up, very standard process. It doesn't change much. And second is that this is a very tough industry. I think, and people must understand when they come in, while there's growth, you learn a lot. It is still a very difficult industry to work in, even as an engineer. And second is, all our factories are very located in, such as Gujarat or Chennai, right? In Nagpur, Nasik, like the hinterlands of India. We tend to take also students who would be comfortable to work in these kind of areas and situations. So also it depends on that, because maybe lot of cases we have gone and expanded in various places, but students have left after some time because the culture, it's a big shock, right? The food, it's really it's out of your comfort zone, so it's not easy. But ma'am, we also have the entire diversity initiative, so we are trying to bring in students from all across the states. I think Shreyas also told that somebody from our campus team did reach out to the campus.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had the first round also.
So that's part of our entire diversity, where we are looking at geographical diversity to bring in people from diverse locations, and that's what we are trying to do, in our factories and in our locations. But it again becomes how the students are willing to take up such challenging roles. I think that's also important. And what then we look at when we come to a campus is, are the best of the students applying for this? Are they looking for, and when we say again, best is meeting the values, right? And really wanting to show a difference, because we have been on campuses and we've gone for campus, talk, and there are like 10 students just sitting there, right? So that also tells us, how much is the interest that is shown by the campus itself. And this is maybe where Legacy Campus we have been going for the last 10 years, and we've had that reception. So that sort of also breaks the relationship. I think it's all about building the relationship and really growing and having people come in. So so that's what it's about, ma'am. I think it's not a slow process, but if the students show the interest, I think it's less about you and I. It's more about the students, showing that interest, that it will build the relationship and really have us recruit more.
Okay.
Yes, I would like to add here, right?
Yes.
Like what Sherry said, students are the brand ambassador of any institution, right?
Yeah. Right.
It just sums up to that. When it comes down to hiring strategies, most companies would have already partnered with a lot of institutes and things like that, right?
Yes.
But we are a little different. While we have a partnered institutions, we also have another platform where it is open to colleges across India, right? We have something called as a Tech GM, which you can in other terms call as a hackathon, but it's not really a hackathon. It's an open platform for anyone to apply, right? Last year we had 22,000 students participating in that across India. Okay. So here wherein we give real life challenging situations to students, right? What our clients have, it's a team event. Like you could have 3 teams, 10 teams, there's no restrictions on the number of teams as well, right? So they come in, they sort of participate in this event, partner with our in-house sort of specialists, and also they'll have a mentor from the institutes whom our company the business unit heads will coordinate and things like that, right? And they are also offered through this program. The whole idea is to sort of build pipeline not just by tier 1, tier 2 institutes, but also institutes across India, because through this we'll also have diversity coming in, right? We are also sort of not only hiring people just by the college category, but we're hiring the right people, which is very important, I feel, right? There are many who do not get the opportunity to study in IITs or NITs, but are really good studying in other institutes. How do they get that opportunity is also very important, right? So this is a platform for that.
actually what you said is very right, because there are some really bright students across. I think, the whole tag has kind of skewed the perception, which is not the case. And even among students, I think you need to just build up. So like, for example, tire, it's a highly engineered product, right? There are so many things that go in it, from simulation, design, testing, vehicle dynamics, right, which is part of the R&D, to compounding, chemical engineering, and then the product on the manufacturing lines. And these are all various fields of engineering, right? So how well are the students, aware about these industries, which may not be as fancy as like the ITs and the consultings, but and very good industries in India right now, which are thriving and actually doing better in the COVID situation, right? So there are a lot of fields of engineering. I think that it's just about students being eager and wanting to.
Yeah,
and I think they should come to you, ma'am. They should come and say
Yes.
that, why did you bring this company to a campus? I think it
They
should be
do,
able
they
to-
do.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's very good to hear. Very good to hear, actually. If they are.
In fact, even I have my, my dream. Like, I always tell this to myself, that these are the companies I really want to be on campus. And I will not name a few companies, but there is one company that has come to Goa, visited only 2 colleges, but my college was not a part of it. So for me, that's a big, that's like a big challenge. So that's a big challenge. So I'm striving to ensure that maybe next year, next batch, if not the next batch, at least through hackathons or Code Vitas, through all these hackathons, I want to push my students to be in these companies, so that I know I can tell the company that, see, I have my students working here, and now there are the better ones or the best ones also there. So probably I can put that across and get the companies here.
Certainly. And I'll be certainly sending out an invite.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Abhijit.
Thank you. Over to you, Shreyas.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so yes, thank you so much, both of you. We'll just wind this up because we have already exceeded the time. But thanks for giving your time. And on behalf of Don Bosco College of Engineering and the entire team at Training and Placement Office, we extend a very hearty vote of thanks to both of you, to the speakers, and with all the opinions that you have given, about all your ideas and your work that you have shared with us today. And I'm definitely sure that it has helped a lot of students, and also us. Maybe we'll help the students to train them better for the future HR interviews. And I guess they have made the best out of it. So thanks once again for giving your time and sharing your knowledge with us. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
being here. Thank you, Shreyas, so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am, for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Abhijit.
much.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Avila ma'am. Thank you, Shreyas.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Yeah, take care and have a nice day.
You too.
You too. Stay safe all.
Bye.